So what were the verses talking about? It was talking about knowledge. Was it? It was telling us about knowledge, the importance of knowledge, the result of application of knowledge, and the person or the symptoms of a person that has applied that knowledge. Is that what we did? So the importance of knowledge is, just as fire burns everything to ashes, similarly, what does knowledge do? Burns away all of our कर्माणि भस्मात् कुरुते. Karmani, so that which accrues or that which has accumulated due to actions done, that is called as karmani, of actions done. So this sounds mystical, isn't it? It also could make us a little whimsical, this understanding. Why do I say whimsical? Because then people think that, okay, tomorrow onwards I'm going to read this every day. Just as if I light fire to a bunch of paper, it completely burns to ashes. So I totally believe in the Bhagavad Gita. I believe in Krishna. So Krishna said that if I read Bhagavad Gita, all my reactions to previous actions will be nullified, burned away. So from tomorrow onwards, we are going to do Gita Parayan and burn away all of our reactions of past actions. How many of you all had that thought before I put it into your head right now?
Earlier we were saying that whatever the action we did, we have to go through it. It's nothing like we can escape through it. Because if you are in devotional service, it will be little easy to go through it. That's what I learned. But this
Where did you learn that?
in the previous lectures and everywhere.
Previous lectures. So today, there is something that the information surpasses that which was given in previous lectures. So what are we stating here is that we shouldn't take this at face value. Why do you let people have the Gita in their hands? Everyone has Gita in their hands, sorry. Yeah, read the verse, because I think you all read the verse, somebody read it, somebody went through the translation, the purport, and then it's done with. It's like you receive so much mail that sometimes while trashing it, you may unknowingly trash some coupons. And then you hear from a neighbor, hey, did you get that coupon? You're like, where? Then you go and search in a trash can. So similarly, we have opened the Bhagavad Gita once again. This is not the trash can. But typically, we are going back to the verse. See what the verse says. What does the verse say, Kalyan?
It burns the impious activities and also the pious activities.
Okay, that is the purport. What does the verse say?
As a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so do the fire of knowledge burns to ashes all reactions to material activities.
See, the coupon had come in the mail. Most probably we missed out on it. 4.37 translation. Everyone got it?
Yes.
Yeah?
Page number 212.
212. So I am your neighbor. I'm telling you, this has come in my mail. Did it come to you? It came to you. All of you are very, very intelligent and honest people. Tell me, what do you understand by knowledge? What do you think is knowledge?
I think you're talking about transcendental knowledge or mundane knowledge.
What is the verse talking about?
So the transcendental knowledge.
Did it say transcendental knowledge?
Perfect knowledge. Of self and super self.
No. What does the translation say?
This knowledge. Fire of knowledge.
अब मैं क्या करूं बताओ? Is it my mistake? Should I call up Prabhupada and say, I think you missed out transcendental word, because there's a devotee here who wants to know whether it is transcendental knowledge or ordinary knowledge?
I can try to explain with a different example.
Yes.
Say, for example, I don't know anything about human body in terms of anatomy, and if someone asks me to cure a person or do a surgery, I will not be able to do it because I don't have the knowledge. I think that's the knowledge they're talking about.
So how does it burn away the reactions of your actions?
I think then the transcendental knowledge comes into the picture.
So my question is, what is transcendental knowledge according to you?
Prabhuji.
Still loudly. That's fine.
Okay, so where is that given? What body of knowledge could be called as transcendental knowledge? Which book could be called as transcendental knowledge?
The knowledge of the Vedic scriptures.
Correct. Any specific? You would like to narrow it down? Bhagavatam. Okay. Everyone agrees Bhagavatam is okay? Anyone disagrees? Anyone disagreeing?
Knowledge of self-realization.
No, okay, use. So you disagree with Bhagavatam and you want Upanishads to be considered. So somebody said Bhagavatam, so is there any disagreement on it? Anyone disagrees with Bhagavatam being book of transcendental knowledge or a body of transcendental knowledge? Anyone here disagrees with it?
No.
Everyone agrees? There you are. All you have to do is either take a book of Bhagavatam and sleep on it at night, and by osmosis, if everything enters our consciousness, good. Otherwise, read Bhagavatam. You read Bhagavatam, what should happen? When you light a fire or when you strike matchstick, what happens?
Right.
What happens to the matchstick?
It burns into ashes.
Turns into ashes. That is any disagreement with that? We agree when that analogy is given by this verse. Is it correct? That when you put fire to fire sticks, the fire sticks are burned to ashes. Can we do that practically? So then Krishna is saying, just as that is practical, similarly, fire of knowledge completely destroys the reactions of material activities. Agreed? So what is a form of knowledge that we know of? Otherwise, people will thinking, where is knowledge? Is it going to descend from the sky? Fire doesn't descend from the sky. We know where fire comes from. You have a matchstick in your hand or you have a lighter in your hand, you can create fire. Is that true or not? Right? So Krishna should be speaking something practical. He cannot always be speaking in metaphors. Can he be speaking in metaphors? Can he only be speaking about things that should only be imagined and can be projected in a story form on a 70 screen? Animation. How the fire of knowledge burns away everything. Is that what Krishna wants us to do? Does he want us to have a animated version of this understanding on the 35 screen. But that is the way we understand knowledge. If you want to, if this comes on social media, this verse and its explanation, and if there is going to be some pictorial form of it, like reels, how are they going to show fire of knowledge? Tell me. Burning, like Yajna Kund, and all sinful reactions getting destroyed. Do you think that is what Krishna is trying to help us understand? No, he's not. He's making it very, very practical for us. Very practical. He says, hey, you know how to create ashes? And Arjuna is like, yeah, I do. How? He says, you light it up, the fire burns it to ashes. Krishna says, similarly, the fire of knowledge burns away all the reactions to your material activities. Why is it that we miss out on the practicality of it?
Because after reading, sometimes we forget and we're not able to implement it in our life.
Okay. What is it that we forget?
What we read
And what did we read?
about how transcendental knowledge burns the fire, it will burn our sinful reactions, our reactions to the sinful actions.
Okay, reactions to material activities. You can say sinful reactions. Perfectly all right. It is all kinds of reactions. Okay. I think in the purport, Prabhupada will explain that. A priori and a posteriori, he explains. That which comes before and that which comes after. Right? So we forget that we have read this. Okay, let us say we remember it. How do we apply it? How do we apply in our lives the understanding of fire of transcendental knowledge?
Consciously by listening to it again and again and by being in the circle of devotees.
Okay, that is a good point. Being in the circle of devotees, because what happens in the circle of devotees? They discuss how to play cricket in Krishna conscious ways. Is that what devotees do? Or they discuss how to make cake that can be offered to Krishna because their children like to eat cake. Is that what devotees do? Is that what is being referred to here? Is that fire of transcendental knowledge? So when you're in the circle of devotees, what happens? Something has to happen, right? They keep on reading Bhagavad Gita. Are you asking me if it is right? Yeah, your opinion is valid. Definitely your perspective is acceptable. So
You get the power to be aware of the material activities that you're doing before you react to it.
how? How do I know the power of material activities?
Awareness of the material activities.
How do I understand the awareness of material activities?
By reading this, so you know what are material activities, what are spiritual activities.
Example?
Anger. Someone speaks harshly with you.
Mhm.
Your awareness about Krishna consciousness helps you react to that person in the right way, which is the response, rather than just a reaction. So that can be a transcendental knowledge.
Okay. So how are you trying to relate it to anger?
How am I trying to relate it to anger? The reaction to anger. I'm trying to relate it to the reaction.
So there was anger somewhere there.
Yes.
And Krishna consciousness helps you to
Respond and not react.
To the anger that you have.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
For example.
So it is always a posteriori. After something happens, Krishna consciousness helps you to deal with it.
In material world, that is what I.
Can it happen a priori? Even before anger comes up, can Krishna consciousness help you deal with it? Situations where anger could come up.
Yes.
It could. Okay. So dealing with anger in situations where there could be anger, but then you have learned the technique of not succumbing to the situation where anger can develop. Or if anger has manifested within ourselves, then how do we channelize it, or how do we deal with it such that it is healthy?
Using Krishna consciousness.
Okay, using Krishna consciousness. Now, this is a very intellectual understanding. Burning fire stick is not just intellectual, it is a very practical understanding. So there has to be a practical understanding of this situation, or no? Or does it only have to be philosophical and intellectual? Practical. So practical understanding, somebody said, you said, devotees, no, you said, being amongst devotees, you said reading Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, listening to Bhagavad Gita, correct? So amongst devotees, if they are discussing Bhagavad Gita, then there is fire of knowledge. If they are discussing something else, there's some other fire, I guess. Is that correct?
Election.
Yes.
Fire of election.
Okay. No, you can always say Hare Krishna, the results in the elections are Hare Krishna, so and so Hare Krishna. I mean, you can make it Krishna. Devotees know the art of making everything Krishna conscious, isn't it? Dovetailing everything in Krishna consciousness. No? Okay, the point that I'm trying to see if you all can agree to is, when we speak of the fire of knowledge burning to ashes certain reactions of certain activities, then that fire has to have a tangible form. It cannot be an abstract form. It cannot just be an intellectual form. It cannot be just a imaginatory form. Did I use the proper English? What was it? What did I say? Imaginary form. Imaginatory, like migratory. An imaginary form. It cannot be an imaginary form. Can it be an imaginary form? No. So what is the form of a practical, tangible form of fire of knowledge? What is it? Ayyo.
I can try to answer that.
Yes.
We see a practical change in our behavior, in our reactions, in our day-to-day life. Is what, from my understanding, what I am noticing in myself, because it's been over a year I've been coming here. I see practically changing to the things that happen in life, and not overthinking, not reacting, not getting into kusangati. A lot of things are changing, and it's a slow change, and you can feel it. It's hard to express it, but you can feel that things are changing.
Okay. Yes. Does it address my question? Because what you are explaining, according how I perceive it, is that you're explaining that there's certain transformation happening. Here we are not speaking of transformation. It is not calcium carbonate being converted to calcium hydroxide. Isn't it? Here there's combustion being spoken of. Now, when there is combustion, everyone understands combustion. Bunsen burner flame. You put some rod into it, suddenly ignites, combustion happens. Chemistry भूल गए हम सब. So Krishna is speaking of combustion. Firewood, ashes, very tangible. You can touch it, you can see it, you can feel it. Fire, you can see. If you want to feel it, be careful. It could burn you, but you can feel it. You want to touch it, be careful. Let it be a cold flame, no problem. Then you won't get burnt as much. I mean, you won't feel the heat, but you can get burnt. So be careful. Krishna is speaking of a very tangible process. We try to get entangled in an intangible process. I'm trying to understand Just as to burn firewood, I create fire using a matchstick, and the firewood bursts into flames. Similarly, I need the flame of transcendental knowledge. So I would need something that would be like a matchstick, something that should be like firewood. So for firewood, I have got my material, actions and the reactions. What is a matchstick that creates a fire?
Body.
No, Krishna himself is mentioning
Knowledge.
knowledge itself is a matchstick. Knowledge itself is a matchstick, isn't it? If you use knowledge, you strike it, just as you strike a matchstick, the matchstick has latent fire in it. Matchstick has latent fire element in it. Now there is friction created. What happens? It releases that fire element, hence the matchstick burns. Is that right? What is that tangible element which represents the matchstick of knowledge?
Our soul, our body. Yes.
No, don't. It's very simple. If I say, okay, we have to get transcendental knowledge, or Kosh says here that we have to have transcendental knowledge. You ask Prabhuji, where can I get transcendental knowledge from? What are some typical answers that he is going to give you? Ayyo. Is that tangible? You're sending that person on another wild goose chase. वो स्क्रिप्चर कहाँ ढूंढते जाएगा? आप क्या उसको बताओगे? बोलेगा प्रभु जी मुझे ज्ञान कहाँ से मिलेगा? मुझे ज्ञान चाहिए, ज्ञान, मुझे दिव्य ज्ञान चाहिए. आप क्या बोलोगे उसको? दिव्य ज्ञान कहाँ से चाहिए आपको? नहीं, इसलिए आपको बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन करना चाहिए. आप बोलोगे ये लो, ये. This is why can't we speak in practical terms? Why do we have to bring things to something really esoteric? जनरली आपसे कोई भी पूछेगा आप क्या बोलोगे? आप भगवत गीता पढ़ो. बोलते हो कि नहीं बोलते हो आप उसको कभी आंसर देते हो क्या? आपको स्क्रिप्चर्स पढ़ना चाहिए. How many of you all give answers like that? Please tell me. Other than when you are sitting in a lecture and you are answering questions, other than that, in practical life, do you tell anyone? If someone comes to you on the street, hey, I think you have something good for me. Can I get transcendental knowledge? Are you going to tell him read scriptures? Or her?
We will ask him to come and join us association.
And do what? Where is he going to get the knowledge from? Where are up? Will you want to give that person a book or invite that person hoping that that person is going to come back? That is why book distribution is so important. Only book distributors know the importance of time. A book distributor will simply hand a book and say, also please come to our temple. A book distributor will not keep this book besides him or her and say, please come to the temple and you'll get transcendental knowledge there. A book distributor never does that. Do you know why? Because the book distributor understands what is knowledge and the form of knowledge. No one else understands that. Everyone speaks words. Everyone else speaks words. A book distributor understands this. Therefore, Prabhupada said that what will all your words do? Simply give that person a book. Why? Because this book will stay with that person, hopefully, always. You staying with that person, hopefully, always, the probability is much less. So what is knowledge being spoken about? This is the form. Not scriptures, because we have no idea. It's like when I was doing book distribution in my early days, we used to go on the streets. People would come, do you have Ved? Do you have Ved? So we would keep certain copies. We would give them, no, I want the complete Ved. And I'm like, what complete weight? How does a complete weight look like? Does it look like a bull? Does it look like an aeroplane? What does it look like? No, the complete book. I said, how do you know this is not the complete book? Oh, this doesn't look like the complete book. It should be very fat, very thick, Where do you get these ideas from? Where do people have such ideas from? Because they're always living in another world of transcendence. They think transcendence is that which is beyond our seeing, which is beyond our hearing. Then why would Krishna give us knowledge? Because he wants us to use our seeing and hearing to transcend. Just like you take an aeroplane to fly in the air, isn't it? But if you tell someone, let us fly in the air, and they're like, how? Oh, just flap our hands like the birds. You're not going to fly. You take a plane or a glider to fly in the air, isn't it? Similarly, just with our present understanding of life is we cannot transcend, but when we accept transcendental knowledge, which for us, do we speak anything else other than Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam? Okay, Upanishads. Other than the Shri Upanishad, do we have any other Upanishad? So why do we even bring up the topic of Upanishad? Because we've heard the word. It sounds very, very esoteric.
गीता को भी तो गीता उपनिषद बोलते हैं.
अच्छा, किसने बोला आपसे? जल्दी से एग्जांपल दे दो, कौन बोला आपसे? हाँ, बोलते हैं. अभी टेक्निकलिटी में जाना है. Where in the Upanishads has the Gita Upanishad been considered an Upanishad? बताओ. चलो टेक्निकल. Where in the Upanishads do we count the Gita Upanishad as an Upanishad? बताओ.
महाभारत में.
महाभारत क्या है? व्यासदेव जी का घर है कि मेरा घर है? Shri Upanishad has been listed down as one of the Upanishads technically. Gita Upanishad can be considered an Upanishad because its format is like the Upanishad. But Gita has not been instituted as an Upanishad. Shri Upanishad has been instituted as an Upanishad. Technical difference समझ में आ गया? ठीक है. Fire of knowledge. भगवद गीता समझ में आ गया बात. इतने डिस्कशन के बाद सिंपल से बुक पर हम लोग पहुंच गए. So now we have the element that can create the fire of knowledge. Easy up till now. We have been reading Gita. Where is the fire of knowledge? This is where Krishna says, ये पहली सुलझा कर दिखाओ. Solve this puzzle. Everything is right in front of us. It is like 8 matchsticks arranged as squares, and they say, just take off one matchstick and create 4 triangles. You're supposed to do that. We have the capacity to do it. Right? Typical approach of someone who really doesn't want to use one's faculties, one's God-given talents is, you show me. And then they show us, and then somebody teaches us how to do it, and we're like, oh, it's so simple. So simple. So similarly, when someone like me sits one day, maybe you'll also sit somewhere like that, maybe 2 or 3 friends, you have understood, you have read something, and you're going to explain. The approach of the audience is, after you explain it, it is so simple. It was always simple. Krishna has given it to everyone for application. Okay? But since our typical approach to such situations of solving puzzles is, seems difficult. We need somebody to help us, guide us. And that person comes and says, hey, just remove this. And when that person removes that particular plastic, you're like, that was so easy. So the solution is always easy. That is the gist of 4.37. It is not speaking of a great achievement. It is speaking of a day-to-day achievement that every one of us can have in life if we use our talents. Everyone has latent talents. Every one of us has. If we use that talent to ignite the fire of knowledge, as is being spoken here, Jnanagni Dagdha Karma, that burns away the reactions to ashes. You know what our challenge is? Our challenge is, as soon as somebody explains a solution to us, now we know the solution, right? How to make 5 triangles out of 4 squares of matchsticks. Now we know the solution, right? We think that we have understood how to solve puzzles. All we have done is borrowed the solution from someone else. We have not developed our own innate abilities to resolve puzzles in our life. Now we have done that in other aspects of life, be it engineering, be it commerce. We've done that. But when it comes to understanding scriptural concepts, somewhere or the other, we utilize our talents only to a certain limited capacity. And hence, when we hear another explanation which is more elaborative, we feel, oh, that was so simple. I mean, it is such a great explanation. And the next time, we only limit ourselves to that explanation because it's easy to live on borrowed money, borrowed concepts. Let me give you an example. Once upon a time, there was an entire village of really disheartened people because everyone had problems in their life. And everyone was convinced that their problem was bigger, larger than anyone else's problem. Life is a struggle. To make the two ends meet is very difficult. Somebody comes for help, we are like, okay, we'll help you, but Prabhuji, you know, Mataji, you know, there are always going to be problems. Let me tell you how there were problems in my life. And how by reading the Bhagavad Gita or following chanting Hare Krishna, I feel better. The same XYZ people, when they find somebody else that they revere, respect, they'll say, we have so many problems. So to one class of people, they convince them that their life doesn't have problems, they resolve problems. But when they come to another group of people who they feel are better teachers than them, they have all sorts of problems. Is that true? And it's not just about spiritual life, it's day-to-day life also. If you have younger members of your family come and say, it's so difficult to study, so many books, you're like, "Padhai karo, ho jata hai, don't worry, you'll do it." And then when you have to study because you have taken up a course, at that time, some or the other, that doesn't really help you. You have to go and listen or hear from somebody else who tells you, don't worry, don't worry. If you study properly, it will be easy. Just go on studying. Don't take so much tension. Is it correct? So where does the hierarchy end? So we in Krishna consciousness, we have found a nice solution to it. We say Guru Parampara. Hierarchy ends at Krishna. So you go to your Guru, that Guru will go to his or her Guru. Will go to his. Nice, isn't it? So everyone comes with the baggage of problems. And the person who gives them certain resolution or solution goes with their baggage of problems to someone else. So life is like that, correct? So an entire village was just like that. There were certain issues, problems that they were having, difficulties in life. And sometimes they would kind of just try to be philosophical and say, life just has to go on. And at other times, they would really get frustrated. So a period of 10, 15 years, the baggage of frustrated remembrances was much more. Like, since the time I came to this place, there have been only problems. Sometimes it was easy, but there were so many issues, so many problems. Since the time I got married, there were so many problems. I was more happy when I was not married. Solution. So a few members of that community, they said, online I saw this Hare Krishna people. They say you should chant Hare Krishna and pray to Krishna. So let us all pray to Krishna. So they all started praying to Krishna. What did they do? They all started praying to Krishna. And they were so sincere in their prayers. They were so sincere in their prayers that what happened? Because of their sincerity, they started believing that Krishna will give them a solution. What did you think? I'm going to say the problems went away? This is a real world. I'm not telling you a story. All right? So in the real world, the problems stay. However, when you continue praying, you start believing that your prayers will be answered. If you continue praying. But if you have just a finite timeline of praying, then after some time you're going to be an atheist, like there's no God. Because I prayed for X number of months or years and there's been no answer. So I want to be a disbeliever. However, if you continue praying and you go on praying and praying, then you start believing that your prayers will be answered or heard. So our community of villagers, they all were praying and praying and praying. And funnily enough, one day Krishna did appear to them. They had darshan of Bhagavan. Just as Ravana had darshan of Bhagavan. And Hiranyakashipu also had darshan of Bhagavan. And so many of their friends and relatives also had darshan of Bhagavan. Correct? But from Ravana's community, only Vibhishan kind of understood Bhagavan. From Hiranyakashipu's community, only Prahlad understood Bhagavan. But everyone had darshan of Bhagavan, all right? So what did the villagers have? Darshan of Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord appeared. Right? Okay, let us say he appeared in the sky somewhere. Because that is how Bhagavan appears, right? If he comes walking down the street, who's going to believe he's Bhagavan? So he has to appear magical. So he was floating in air, all right? So everyone is down on their knees. Bhagavan, Bhagavan, Bhagavan. Krishna, Krishna has finally appeared. Krishna has finally appeared. So Krishna said, what is your wish? In unison, in single voice. All of them said, please free us from our problems. Krishna said, all right. So Krishna, Bhagavan has to do some chamatkar, no? Some miracle. Otherwise, how are we going to believe that he is Bhagavan or God? God has to do miracles. He has to make someone walk on water. Or someone do Shirsasan in air. Then we are like, okay, this is Bhagavan. So anyways. So Bhagavan, he said, he waved his hand like this. Krishna waved his hand. And in the distance, they saw a beautiful, beautiful field. Like a huge field of the size of 5 football fields. Most probably Krishna came to a very good school district. A nice infrastructure, football fields, 5 huge football fields. Okay, that size. And then Krishna told them, you go to that field and you chant a mantra. Let all my burdens go away from me. And you'll see all of your burdens get separated from your life right in front of your eyes. You'll see them be separated from you. You should label what your worries are, what your burdens are, what your problems are. Label them. Label that bundle and leave it in that field. Can you imagine what a mad rush people made to that field? Everyone ran to that field and they chanted the mantra. What was the mantra? Thank you. What was the mantra? Otherwise, the field will get confused. Because I say Hare Krishna and I'm expecting that the field should give me gulab jamuns. He's chanting Hare Krishna and expecting the field should give him rasgullas. And the field gives both. And then we are wondering, why should he give rasgullas to him? When I say gulab jamuns, my mantra should only give gulab jamuns. So sometimes Hare Krishna is a little interesting how it manifests. Therefore, we give particular special mantras. What was the mantra? Please take away my burden. So they went to that field. Everyone did nice achman. They sat down on a nice asan. See, they are all very, very cultured people. They know all the paddhati. They know what to do, how to do, the rituals. And then they chanted the mantra. Please take away all my burden. And miraculously, they saw all of their burden, all of their problems get separated from them. They felt so light. They labeled their problems and they put that bundle in that field. Now they're feeling very happy. They come running back to Krishna. They say, thank you, my dear Lord. Krishna says, no, no, no. That is part of the solution. They're like, okay, what is the complete solution? He says, now go back to the field and you choose anyone else's burden that you can live with. Why should the field have everyone's burden? Why the field should be troubled with everyone's burden, right? So Krishna says it's very difficult for you to live with your problems. So you unburden yourself, put it out there, and now choose which problems you want to live with, whose problems you want to live with. So the fat man runs and he selects problems that a thin person has. The thin man runs and selects the problems that a fat person has. A husband runs and selects the problem that a wife has. The wife runs and selects the problem that a husband has. A brother runs and selects the problem that typically you feel that somebody else who's just opposite of you has lesser problems than you. Is that true or is it not? In India, that is, aapko kya pata? Aapka to sab kuch theek hai. I mean, it is your problems and nothing in front of my problems. So there, exchange. Krishna says exchange. So everyone runs and everyone gets the solution. Everyone is happy with a particular burden that they feel that they can deal with. So they come back with their bundles. And they're like, Krishna, thank you. Now I think or I feel confident that I can deal with these problems. 15 minutes later,
Starting
My own problems back. I don't know why. Please give me.
how do you know my story?
Because I will not choose others.
They start praying that, my dear Lord, please take away these problems. We are okay with our problems. So somebody texted them, hey, what happened? How did you have this realization? They said, because we have the skill sets. We spent our entire life developing skill sets to deal with our problems. We never developed skill sets to deal with others' problems. And that is the whole thing. The whole thing is, the crux of the matter is, when you work hard enough, and everyone does hard work because they want to be happy in life, you develop certain skill sets. Those skill sets are best suited for dealing with your problems. Because typically when you try to give a solution to someone else's problems, after 2 days they come back and say, it's a bigger problem. I should not have listened to you. Or if there is a solution, they feel happy. Now they come back for more solutions, for further problems. And you may not have the solutions to all their problems. You ask any sadhu in India that can be approached by the public, and they'll say every day all that people come is, I have this problem, I have that problem. And every year the same people come back with different problems. It's like they're a magnet that attracts problems to their life. Here is why Krishna is saying, just as it is so easy to burn away, to burn firewood to ashes simply by lighting a match and putting it to the firewood. Similarly, knowledge. Obviously, here is speaking about the knowledge that helps you act on the platform of what your real identity is. That knowledge provides you with the skill sets, provides you with the tools to burn away the reactions to the actions that you are accustomed to performing. Even twins, each person's action is completely independent or completely individualistic compared to one's own twin. Biologically similar twins. One may be happy, one may not be as happy as the other person feels. It's not that, oh, Tom and Tim, they are biological twins, Sam is twins. Tom is happy, but Tim sometimes is not as happy. Why? Because Tim is a different person. Tim's skill sets to understand the world around has come from Tim's hard work, not Tom's hard work. It has come through the interaction of Tim's senses with the world outside. It has not come because of the interaction of Tom's senses with the outside world. Does that make sense? So they started praying to Krishna, please let us have our own problems. So the fact of the matter is, when you pray to Krishna, and if somebody convinces you that if you start praying to Krishna, all your problems will go away, that is good marketing. Because Krishna is not like that field where you dump everything. When you come to Krishna, you get to choose. How do you want to lead your life now? When you come to the Bhagavad Gita, you once again become aware that you have a choice to make, or you can have a choice. You can decide how do you want to lead your life now onwards. And when you start performing actions, you develop skill sets which help you deal with certain limitations that we have as humans. As humans, I have two eyes that can help me see what is in front of me. These eyes cannot help me see what is behind me. I'll need a mirror. But then the problem is, when I look into the mirror, I can see what is happening behind me. However, my eyes now can only look at the mirror. They cannot see what is in front of me. Did you realize that? When you look in the rear view mirror of your car, you're no longer focused on what is ahead of you for a moment. Is that true? So because of certain limitations that I have as a human, there are going to be challenges in my life. What knowledge does is, it helps you develop skill sets. And what does skill sets help you do? Overcome those challenges. And when you overcome those challenges, the challenges no longer exist. And that is how they are turned to ashes. Is that helpful? So next time, please don't give parrot-like answers like, yeah, knowledge will help us. Make it practical in your life. See how it can be applied in your life. And this is just one verse. I asked him, what is the verse? I decided to do a little analysis on it. And I know a lot of stories. So found a story that it make the atmosphere a little more engaging. Hopefully, the story was relevant enough. Hopefully, it helped us understand how we can develop skill sets and have tools through knowledge. Is that all right? So we'll stop here.
Question answer session.
Any questions?
Based on that sloka, like Krishna here, he is telling like burning to ashes. Not exactly like he didn't compare to.
The reason was because in Krishna's times they still had firewood and they burnt ashes. They did not have that.
Some places he gave
fireplace.
Example of eyes getting what is that? Fog getting out of due to sunshine. Niharam eva bhaskara. That one.
Where does Krishna give that example?
He gives like smoke. Right? Talking about not fog, smoke, right?
No, he mentioned the verse Niharam Iva Bhaskara. So I understand what he's referring to. But when you say Krishna gives that example somewhere, are you sure Krishna gives that example?
Yeah.
Or do you want to say that I've read that in one of the books that is recommended by ISKCON? Because we may not remember which book, right? It's Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay. Yeah.
So because some residue is there, like leftover and the ashes thing, but there in that example there is no leftover. Like that example is given when someone says like if someone is doing devotional service, their reactions are totally evaporated instead of having some residue there. Like, I don't know. Is there some significance there? I just thought this and asked. Why is giving that example specifically?
Because they are different people at different moments or in different time frames. They have been explaining their understanding. In retrospect, we have taken both and combined. It's like taking one frame from one movie and another frame from one movie. Both movies is by Ram Charan only. And we combine it and we say, oh, here he is being a college student. And next frame, he's being a laborer. How is that possible? Okay, it's if you're trying to compare how he can easily, in this case, the actor Ramcharan, how he can easily get into the shoes of the character, then the comparison is good. But if you're trying to compare, or if you're trying to see if this frame and that frame has different degrees of importance, then it is a little overreach that we're trying to do. Okay, so one, in the Bhagavatam, context is a little different. In the Bhagavad Gita, the context is a little different, and in both places, according to the context, the understanding is complete. All right. For example, Krishna says that anyone who shares this knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita with my devotees is very dear to me. True. So right now we are sharing this message of the Bhagavad Gita, then according to Krishna's statement, we are all dear to Krishna. Now should we go and say that, but in the Bhagavatam, Krishna, something better is mentioned? Because here, residue still remains, but there it completely dissipates. So in that sense, maybe you are trying to overreach. However, if there are two friends and they are trying to discuss, or let us say two brothers who are very close to each other, and they are trying to discuss the menu of, or the cooking of their mother. So one says, when our mother cooks sandesh, it completely melts on the tongue. Or let us say, when she cooks that, let's say, ice cream, it melts on your tongue. That is one example. And you feel as if it has reached every single pore of your body or every single part of your tongue. And the other brother says, when she makes those nice cookies, and when you crunch on it, and when that flavor, some of it sticks on your teeth, some of it just stays on your tongue, and then you swallow it whole. I mean, you feel as if all that flavor is just going down your throat. Then the first person says, hey, but it does not dissolve completely now. Ice cream completely dissolves. In this case, you still have to swallow. Ice cream, you don't even have to swallow. It simply just dissolves and slips down on its own. But the other person says, I like it like that. So those kind of discussions are all right. So you may find some practitioner trying to explain that how this verse is more inspiring because the fog completely dissipates. Now, the fog is completely gone by performance of devotional service, so all the sinful reactions are completely dissolved. Agreed. What if we do not have access to Bhagavatam? We only have access to Bhagavad Gita and verses of Bhagavad Gita. Is this verse incomplete in that sense? It is not. Okay? So we have to be very, very careful. There are two terms in spiritual scholarly circles. One is Tattva Gyan, and the other is Bhava. Now, if you take bhava and bring it into the realm of tattva, it is like eating sweet rice and somebody adds salt to it. If you take tattva and bring it to the realm of bhava, it's also the same. So let tattva be tattva and bhava be bhava. So these are two technical aspects which are discussed in scholarly circles. All right. So what you are saying is when certain acharya brings out the concept of how, from the bhava perspective, the example of the fog dissipating seems to be a little more complete than the example of firewood being burned to ashes. Is it all right? Even if there's residue, that those ashes are, they do not have any harmful effect. Isn't it? So, the process is complete in that sense. Okay? Any other questions?
आपने जो श्लोका बताया वो हम लोग 2 दिन पहले रीड किया था।
ये तो आप बताया आज करना है।
तो उसके इसलिए कुछ याद नहीं था, कुछ बताने को।
Today what did you read then? 4.37 read नहीं किया?
वो रिवीजन किया, बट हमने रिवीजन किया। उसके बाद से रीडिंग चालू किया था।
तो you should have told me 38. I'm prepared to 38 also. 38 पे बोलूं? I have another story.
लेकिन अच्छा हो, क्लैरिफाई हो गया, भूल गए थे सबको क्या लगे उसको।
क्या भूल गए थे, क्या याद आ गया?
We lost the voucher. We found it.
No. That is not the point. I'm not here to deliver vouchers. I'm not here to tell you vouchers. What I'm saying is that make it relevant. Make it relevant in your lives. Otherwise, it will only be things that are spoken from the podium. Correct? Yes.
After you are done.
I'm done.
One question which is not directly related.
Okay.
So knowledge that we discuss is a tool to build skill set.
Today's words, I'm saying.
Yeah.
In today's words, we're trying to understand
Knowledge to build.
in the English language, according to the world, I think all of us know the world that we live in, the words that we use, according to that, the dictionary that we use.
So from an analogy perspective, so knowledge is used to build a skill set. So similarly, so knowledge is the knowledge that we have here. I would love to understand your perspective on chanting. Is chanting also a tool to build some skill set, which can help us in burning some ashes? Or the purpose of chanting is something different?
If I have to give my perspective on something, then I would need to have its basis in some scripture. I cannot come up with explanation on conceptions that I conceive of, because that would be my limitation. For example, I can say that actually, you see, if you really find a way to understand how the sky can be green to look at, and I conceive of that, then yes, I can develop the skill sets for that. I can develop the tools for that. I can wear green glasses. What is it going to achieve? So typically, whenever we try to elaborate on any conception, any concept, any principle, pick that up from the scripture. So for me to explain how is it possible that chanting also burns away sinful reactions, it would be helpful if you can give me a scriptural reference. And then I will elaborate on it. Is there a scriptural reference like that? It's very much possible.
So then what, as per scriptures, what does chanting exactly help in?
When we come to it, we'll discuss. Right now, it may not be needed because today's verse is complete in itself. Okay? If we have been discussing about how chanting helps one overcome one's limitations or it helps one purify oneself, then give me a scripture reference so that I can try and see if there is some analysis that I have or a perspective that I have on that verse. It's like if you ask any scientist, what do you think about such and such? Wouldn't they ask you, what principle are you trying to discuss it from? Isn't it? But if you go to any lay person, they're ready to discuss without even having references, aren't they? So spiritual science is very, very reference specific. The day spiritual science becomes non-reference discussion, no? That brings in a lot of misunderstanding and creates a lot of superstition. So in our parampara, the Sanatan parampara, we always, whenever we have philosophical discussions or any philosophical elaborations, we always start off from a scriptural reference. Always. Is it okay? So today, as I said, this verse. So this is what I have certain understanding. I asked you all for your understanding too. Okay? Is it all right? So yes, I have heard, I have read that chanting also helps you achieve certain goals in life. If you want to discuss that, you have to come up with your reference because then it becomes tangible to you. Like you have to come up with, should I buy a house in this community or not? But if you ask some people, where could I get a house? All of them are going to give you some inputs. After 10 days, each of them is going to ask you, Prabhu, did you go there? Did you look at it? And you're like, no, I did not get that time. I went only to this location and I liked it. Do you have anything more to offer on that location? So 9 out of the 10 fall off, and then you have more discussions with just 1 or 2 people. Because you've already chosen what you want to do. You already made your choice. Okay? However, if you are sitting somewhere after Prashad and there's a discussion, okay, which are certain good communities where we can buy houses? For hours, people discuss and they're like, oh, we got a lot of knowledge. None of it we are going to apply. Because I already have a house. But it was good knowing that there are so many other communities. In the future, if I need a house, I'll take it. Okay? Anything else? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.